Chamber members. My name is Cathy Newman. I'm the Economic Development Manager at the St. Johns County Chamber of Commerce. And I am so pleased to be joined today with Don Fox, CEO of Firehouse of America, LLC. Virtually, of course. And for most of us, Firehouse of America, LLC is better known as Firehouse Subs. Mr. Fox, thank you so much for joining us today and for telling our fellow chamber members more about how Firehouse Subs has adapted its business locally, nationally, and internationally throughout this COVID-19 pandemic to endure and even thrive.
Thanks, Cathy. Yeah, it's my pleasure to be here.
So I was wondering, before we begin talking about how things have been going through COVID, if you could give us a little history on Firehouse Subs, where it started and how it all began.
Certainly. Well, we started in October of 1994, right here in Jacksonville area. First restaurant was in Mandarin on San Jose Boulevard. The founders are Robin Sorensen and Chris Sorensen, two firefighter brothers. Grew up in a family with a firefighting heritage of over 200 years. Their dad, I served 43 years on the Jacksonville Fire Department. So they brought that heritage to the concept. Built out the first restaurant resembling a fire station, branded the menu firefighter themed sandwiches. Immediately set themselves apart because of the nature of the food, hot subs, which wasn't that common, especially back in 1994. Most people think of subs and they're thinking about cold sandwiches. They had a very unique process using steam to heat meat and cheese, and that really had a unique flavor profile. And when they opened that first restaurant, it really was not with a vision of eventually having 1,176 restaurants, which is what we have today. But it quickly started to grow, and right here in the First Coast, and grew by a few restaurants, and then they got into franchising in a serious, deliberate fashion in about 2001, and then it's gone on a very steady pace of growth, accelerated over time. We've never gotten out too far over our skis, as the saying goes. So it's always been with making sure that we had the right resources, had our great ability to service the franchises that we were offering. And so now we operate in 45 states around the country, Puerto Rico, increasing presence in Canada, have 35 restaurants. But this remains our headquarters. This is home. So our world headquarters is on Old St. Augustine Road, right by Baptist South. We've been here for about 3.5 years and operate, of course, several restaurants down in St. Johns County.
That is really actually, it's really impressive, and it's really kind of refreshing to know that Firehouse Subs is truly a local, homegrown business that started small and with a vision and an idea that really just expanded and grew so dramatically, so large, and so successfully. So we've obviously been dealing with this COVID-19 thing for several months now. Can you tell us how Firehouse Subs has been responding to the COVID-19 crisis?
Certainly. And we didn't have a playbook or contingency plan for any of this. And I do believe that anybody that says they did is probably lying. I sort of want to see the evidence of it. We certainly did not. There were some things that were on our radar screen before President Trump made his evening address. That'll always stand out for me. It was March 11th that he addressed the nation. But for several weeks leading into that, we were keeping a close eye on it because of some of our supply chain that stems back to China. We have some SKUs that come out of China, so we were watching that very closely to see if there was going to be any supply chain disruption. And there were things that were uniquely manufactured there. We didn't have any alternative sourcing in the U.S. So with that in mind, we're watching it. President makes his address, and we immediately put some different things in motion for communication purposes. Put together a crisis team. We had a crisis team already because we have a variety of things that can arise in the crisis universe, but not with the disciplines that might play into the pandemic situation. So we reassembled that, reconfigured that team, started meeting immediately twice a day. He did the announcement on the 11th, and then it was on Saturday the 14th that the lug nuts really came loose on the wheels of commerce. And that Saturday, we had never had this happen in our history, and I'm sure for restaurateurs listening in at a similar experience, Saturday was the drop-off day. Now, by comparison, Saturday's drop in sales was light compared to what was going to happen during the day's ahead. So we were about 25% negative sales that Saturday. And then got a little worse on Sunday. And then I made what at the time was viewed as being a fairly radical move, which was I closed all the dining rooms throughout our entire system. And there were some other brands that announced on that Sunday as well that they were doing that. Starbucks, Chick-fil-A came out with those announcements Sunday night. We had a couple of states that were adopting the shutdown of dining rooms right away. So we saw that and figured it was likely to gain momentum during the course of the week. And the CDC came out very candidly and said, look, social distancing, that was like the first we were hearing that phrase, but encouraging social distancing, the spacing. We thought, wow, in our environment, the only way we're going to meet the spirit, at the very least, the spirit of what CDC was asking for is if we close down dining room service. So we did that across the board. Turned out to be a very good move on our part to do that proactively. And then sales proceeded to just plummet down overall. We, at our lowest point, about 10 days into the crisis, we were about 52% negative. Now, as many people listening in, especially in the restaurant industry, know 52% down actually wasn't that bad. There were many casual dining restaurants that just outright already closed. In fact, even days before that, especially if they were in urban core areas, if they were around any sporting events, places that do on tourism, it was tough. So our numbers weren't as bad as some other. So we bottomed out after about 10 days, and then we adopted one key philosophy, which was no matter what, we were going to do everything we could to make today better than the day before, and then laying out the plan for how tomorrow was going to be better than today. We threw out all comparisons to how we were doing last year, all of our normal, any way that we would normally benchmark our business, we put in the trash can. Operational metrics, year-over-year comp sales performance, all that was going to do it being demoralizing. To our team, we started every day talking about how we were 45, 50% negative. No, say, hey, here's the sales we did yesterday. Here's what we're trying to do. $1 more is victory. And the $1 more is not going to happen by accident. You should be able to tie that down to something very specific and intentional that you did. And that philosophy, more than anything else, I think is over the course of the next 4 to 5 weeks through the end of March, through April, that really helped turn the tide for us. Now, we were fortunate that over the past couple of years, we'd already been working on our off-premise business channel. So for us, that's our online ordering, what we call rapid rescue, where people place the order digitally, pay digitally. They just walk in, pick it up, and go. We were already using third-party delivery services throughout the country, Uber Eats, DoorDash, etc. So those tools were already in place, and we just had to find ways to further promote them, which wasn't that easy because when sales went in the tank, I stopped collecting royalty and advertising fees to help out our franchise community, keep as much money in their pocket as they could, because everybody listening, I'm sure, would agree, cash was king at that point. You were relying on your cash reserves and whatever financing you could get, especially before PPP was announced. You had to hang on to the cash you had to try to make sure you got through this, not knowing how bad it might get. So let me just mention that for us, a key point also is when the stimulus money came out. When the individuals, not the PPP money, but the actual stimulus money to the consumer, when those $1,200 checks started to arrive, that created, and this wasn't just true for us, we saw this in the industry data, that created an overnight change in consumer behavior. It almost didn't matter how bad COVID was, money talked. And people went out and started spending in a different way. And that was a marked difference. In fact, week over week, our sales rose about 50% over where they've been the week prior, just with the delivery of those funds. And then from there, it's been upward and onward. We 10 weeks ago, we fully completed our recovery so that we were at or above prior year's sales.
Do you still look at it from a perspective of, are we doing better today than we did yesterday? Or are you starting to look back at last year's sales at this point?
Now we look back at last year's sales. When we crossed that bridge, frankly, much quicker than I expected to get there, as the result of our efforts. But when we bridged that point, wow, because still looking out. In fact, still to this day, we deal with it day by day. I still have that same task force meets every day to assess the systems. We're still immersed in COVID issues. And now we have to respond and try to anticipate the best we can what's going to happen on that front. But now we do focus in terms of those comparisons year over year because now it's very motivating to do so as well. When we're able to talk to the system about 10 consecutive weeks of beating last year's sales in this environment, that's very uplifting and gives our system optimism.
So I'm wondering also too, overall, from a corporate perspective, have you been able to maintain your workforce? Have there been any issues? Did you have to let anyone go or furlough anyone?
We've been very fortunate. We've not had to. We made a very intentional, put an intentional focus on it from the beginning to not let anybody go. I learned some valuable lessons back in the recession of 2008, 2009. As tough as that, now, very different set of circumstances in terms of the rate of fall off in sales and trying to project out where things were going to go. But I made a commitment to our team back in 2008 that as bad as things got, we were not going to lose our perspective that we were a growth brand. And it might be whatever was going to happen in the recession, it was going to be temporary. It was not going to be hopefully not a great depression. And even if it was that, it's going to come around. And if you're going to be relentless about your growth, which all people should, if you're not growing, you're dying. As I both thoroughly embrace that philosophy at all times. So if I know I'm going to get back to a growth mode, well, I need all those people. I need that talent and resources, because if I let them go, temporarily or permanently, their point in time is going to come where I'm probably going to regret it. Now, that's the luxury of having a firm foundation in financial health. The toughest decisions as a business owner, where for all practical purposes, you have to do it. You just don't have the cash to be able to do it, and it's a matter of survival. So I get that, but I have seen businesses that knee jerk on that count. So our priority always was to do everything possible to hold on to that team. So when I stopped collecting royalties from my franchise system, that's our main revenue source. So our number one priority was, look, we have to ensure the survivability of the restaurants. If the restaurants close even temporarily, that presents a challenge. And I suspect there may be people who will listen to this interview who closed their business and now find it very problematic to reopen. Now it's done, that decision was made. But I, from the very beginning, subscribed to the belief that we have to control our destiny. And if we have restaurants that close, we lose control of that destiny. So out of our 1,170 plus restaurants, the most we ever had that we saw close around the entire country was 33 on a temporary basis. And all but, I think, 4 or 5 of those have reopened in that time. And we were immeasurably better off because we never did the closures. So that's why I stopped collecting royalty. That was going to help those restaurants survive. So now I've got something to work with. But during those 6 weeks that we didn't collect any royalty, I had no cash flow coming in. So we were living off reserves and with staff. And fortunately, all of that strategy worked. And so we, of course, now have had the added benefit, I'm sure, of tremendous loyalty.
So I just want to sort of recap some of the things that I've heard is that you and your team you thought through decisions with intention. You held true to what you said you would do. You built a culture of resiliency. You celebrated small victories. And all of this helped to keep you moving forward with the positive momentum mentally and probably emotionally. And therefore that came through with business. You could point to where those increases in dollars came from. And that obviously built your team to be the resilient and loyal team it is today.
That's a great summation. Yes.
Thank you. So, I know we've kept you already for a few minutes, but, we value you as a chamber member immensely and as a local business too. And, my family goes to the Firehouse Subs right around the corner in our neighborhood often. And I know there's at least 3 restaurants here in St. Johns County. But in addition to that, the company is engaged in the community as a partner and in across the country with the foundation. I'm fully aware that you've donated, lots throughout the country and locally to first responders, but I'm certain there's much more that's happened recently. And can you just tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. And just for those who may not be aware of it, our philanthropic energy goes into, since 2005, Firehouse Subs Public Safety Foundation. The primary mission of the foundation is to provide life-saving equipment to first responders, fire department, police department, anybody who's serving the public in that capacity. And over the years, and with increasing effectiveness, we've donated over $50 million worth of equipment around the country, a lot here in the First Coast area. That doesn't happen without our guests. In fact, the guests contribute in any given year. Guests contribute about 60 to 70% of the funds. We donate heavily ourselves, and for the past 2 years, we've been donating a portion of every purchase that actually comes directly from headquarters. So we base it on the sales volumes out in the restaurants. Again, a portion of every dollar goes to the foundation, and we donate on top of that, and our team members and our vendors, and anyway, add it all up, over, I think it's about 52 million now. That's in total, and increases with every year. It's really what makes us tick. In the end, we sell sandwiches. We think we sell really good sandwiches, but every time we open another restaurant somewhere in the country, the thing that I get most excited about is that's an opportunity to now be represented in another community where we've got an opportunity to help fulfill grants and save lives. Because in the end, what really matters the most is what we're doing in communities, where we're really making a difference. Again, I love that we can be a great lunch or dinner for somebody, but boy, if through our presence we help facilitate and get an AED donated that saves somebody's life, that's heart is stopped, or jaws of life that gets somebody out of a vehicle in an emergency, that if that equipment hadn't been donated, the organization wouldn't have it. And it's so much, and at this point in time, it is so much more critical, because think about what has happened to municipal budgets in the wake of COVID. And we're only 4 months into this. So the full impact of it hasn't been felt, but just wait until we get to the end of the year and municipalities are doing their planning for 2021 and the shortfalls that are likely to be out there. So I think our foundation will play a more important role than ever, working in conjunction with the communities to help fill the void that's going to be there. I mean, there's going to be more and more equipment needs, and in some cases, for both fire departments and police departments, I think it's going to be basic equipment. Sometimes we're fulfilling grants for things that I'm not going to say aren't luxuries, but they're items that are harder to get into the budget because they're maybe not the main. For example, maybe a department that's servicing a rural area or has to patrol wilderness needs an ATV to go out and be able to do rescue for lost hikers or something. And maybe that's something that normally you can't fit in a typical budget. That might be something that we do. Or a ski boat to patrol waterways. Again, because that's St. Johns County has it. We've got on the intercoastal, different areas. That's got to be patrolled. And so we often fill those parts of the budget. But with the budget shortfalls a lot of departments face, it may be as simple as a increased need for bunker gear for firefighters. The most basic thing, just the protective gear they need is to protect their lives when they're going in to protect the lives and properties of others. So I think the demand that we can fill is going to be greater than ever. And I applaud our guests continuously, never more than now. And I do think, by the way, that the success that we're seeing with our brand and sales is very heavily tied to what we've done in the community. These are difficult times, financially, emotionally, people needing to feel good about where they are spending the dollars that they have. Do they feel safe where they're spending the dollars? And my gut feel is that as people make those decisions and they think about how we've been there for the community all these years, I think to a certain extent, at the most difficult time, our guests are there for us too. And I can't thank them enough for that.
Thank you so much for sharing all of this with us. It's truly been a pleasure to talk to you. And I've taken up already so much of your time. I know you are probably extremely busy. So I just want to say thank you one more time. And thank you to everyone who's tuning in today on the Chamber Conversation. I just want to remind all of our members to visit our website, www.sjcchamber.com. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and Instagram for updates, information. We're in hurricane season now, so we will be using all of the social media on our website to update you on those storm issues if they come, and any other resources that we make available to our businesses will also be shared that way as well. Thank you again, Mr. Fox. It's truly been a pleasure.
Thanks, Cathy.